The 20 best horror movies streaming right now on TUBI. Yeah, we gotta be honest, TUBI's pretty lit. TUBI is lit, bro. It's free. I remember being in college drunk out of my mind coming home and going on TUBI because I didn't have money for the other streaming services. So dude, TUBI came in clutch. And this list has a little bit of everything, like classic horror movies you've probably never heard of, goofy horror movies. So it's gonna be a wide spectrum because it is 20 movies that we're talking about. So let's not waste any more time. I'm not gonna go in depth to all of them, but I'll say one or two things and then I'll move on. Let's begin. Number 20 is a movie called Triangle, which is a movie about the Bermuda Triangle. And this movie is a complete mind. It is super trippy. It's about these people that get lost in the Bermuda Triangle and then this random ship comes out of nowhere and they get on there and a lot of weird things begin to happen. And it's not the scariest movie, but it's super creepy. It's super long, depressing, and confusing. It's just a mind. Not something I find the urge to rewatch too often because like I said, it's kind of depressing, but like I said, it left such an impact on me after watching it that I feel like it deserves to be on this list. Number 19 is gonna be The Last Shift, and they made a remake to this movie in 2023 called Malum, and it's not a bad movie, but I do think this is the better film. And it is about a rookie police officer who is tasked with taking the last shift at a police station before it is permanently closed. And strange events lead her to believe that it may be haunted. Really creepy movie, definitely worth a watch. Like I said, I think it's better than the 2023 remake Malum. However, I will give credit where credit is due. The opening sequence in Malum was pretty badass. Number 18 is gonna be All Hallows Eve. This is a fantastic anthology horror movie. And if you don't know what an anthology is a movie that has multiple stories in that movie rather than have it one narrative. You understand? Trick or Treat would be a great example of this, but this movie is super scary and it has the famous debut of Art the Clown. Now, even though he's in the entire movie and like in all the shorts of the movie, he's not the main villain of the movie. He's like the main villain in the last short, but in the other ones, he's kind of like a side character. And to me, the scariest short in this movie would have to be The Ninth Circle. You're going into hell and you see demons and the devil himself. It is extremely scary. Number 17 is gonna be Terrifier. So let's get this out the way. I am obsessed with Art the Clown. Obsessed meaning like I'm very scared of him. He looks very creepy. I love all the movies. So since I like all movies and TUBI has all three of them, all three movies are going to be on this list. But what's good about these movies is that they're all different from each other. So like, for example, All Hallows Eve is an anthology movie. Terrifier is solely about Art the Clown. And what's unique about Terrifier is that it doesn't really have a story. So it's just literally an hour and a half of Art the Clown just going on a killing spree. And it is brutal. I mean, some of the most grotesque scenes are in this movie. The infamous upside down scene is in Terrifier, but I love the atmosphere. I love the ambiance that this movie creates. The color grading, the shots are fantastic. Art is on another level in this movie because he's played by David Howard Thornton, whereas in the first movie it was some random actor that I don't know his name, but in this movie it's David Howard Thornton, so it just goes to it elevates him to a next level, and he just shines in every scene that he's in. He's very captivating, which leads me to number 16, Terrifier 2. I love this movie because of its 80s vibes. It's such a throwback and it has such a like Stranger Things feel to it that I just absolutely love it. It's very nostalgic in a way. Now I must warn you, it is very gory and graphic. It is literally the movie that made people come out of the theater throwing up and puking. So just keep that in mind because there are some scenes in this movie that make you want to do that. They are so intense that I couldn't even look at the screen. That's in this movie. But aside from that, the soundtrack is phenomenal, bro. I've seen this movie 4 times. I think the 4th time I just got drunk as hell, just dancing to the soundtrack like a little maniac. Oh, the soundtrack is so good. The costume design is fantastic. The high school vibes, the final girl is awesome. This movie is just a visual treat. It is 2 hours and a half. It's one of the longest horror movies I've ever seen, but it goes by so fast because it's such a good movie. Like I said, it's one of my personal favorites amongst this list. Number 15 is gonna be Stig Ma. I bet you this movie wasn't on your radar, but it is a religious horror movie about the wounds of Christ that start appearing on you. And I'm not sure if that's a real thing. You can comment down below, but I think it's some people in real life actually get that, but don't quote me because I could be totally wrong. But this is a little bit of an older movie. It came out in 1999, but I still enjoyed it when I watched it. And if you're into religious horror movies, I definitely think you should give it a watch. Number 14 is gonna be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm not gonna talk too much about this movie because it is a classic. Everyone knows it's a classic. If you haven't seen the original, get on Tubi and watch it because it is one of the scariest movies ever made, just because dirty and nasty and it almost feels real. Number 13 is gonna be Ringu. This is the original version of The Ring. It's a Japanese horror movie, so you're gonna have to watch it with subtitles. It's a classic. If you like The Ring, you should take a watch to the original. A lot of people like the original even better. I personally like the American version better, but that doesn't mean that this isn't a good movie. It is fantastic. Number 12 is gonna be Ganjiam Haunted Asylum. This is one of the best found footage horror movies out there. So if you haven't seen it and you like found footage, you should definitely watch it. It is another foreign movie, so you're gonna have to watch it with subtitles, but it is worth it. It is one of the scariest movies you're gonna see, especially about found footage. Number 11 is gonna be Alien vs. Predator. I just threw that movie in this list because I feel like it doesn't get enough love. Everybody shits on this movie. I like this movie. Predator is my favorite movie of all time. I obviously love the Xenomorph and Alien franchise is amazing, but the first AVP, not the second one, the second one's trash, but the first one is a good, enjoyable, entertaining movie, and it's a fun monster versus monster movie, so it's on this list. AVP, give it a watch. Now this next one's gonna piss a lot of people off, but it's gonna be The Nun. I enjoyed the first Nun movie, okay? The second one is garbage, and the first one is not that great of a movie, but I enjoyed it. I guess I can call it a guilty pleasure, but it's a fun movie to me. I watched it again and I enjoyed it again, bro. I disagree, everybody shits on it. I will defend this movie. It is a fun time and it is a movie that I like that's part of the Conjuring universe, okay? The Nun is a super creepy villain visually, and the intro to this movie is badass, and like I said, it's a fun movie. It's gonna be on my list. And it's one of the highest grossing horror movies of all time, so suck it. Number 9 is gonna be Jeepers Creepers. This is one of the best horror movies I've seen in the last couple of years. I saw it in college on Tubi. It is so fantastic. The creature design is masterful. The setting, the adventure, it's just overall a great horror movie that I highly doubt anybody would ever watch it and have a bad time. So if you haven't seen Jeepers Creepers, you definitely have to go on Tubi and watch it. Number 8, Apollo 18. A lot of people don't like this movie. I actually really enjoy it. I love found footage horror movies. That's one of my favorite subgenres in the horror genre, and this movie is an awesome found footage movie. Especially if you like space, especially if you like sci-fi, this movie is for you, especially if you haven't seen it. I'd highly recommend it. It is a little bit of a slow burn, but the setting of being on the moon without anybody knowing and creepy stuff happening is super creepy. Number 7 is gonna be Dead Silence. This is one of James Wan's earlier horror films. I really like this movie. Like I said, it's not one of his best. I mean, it's not up there with Insidious or The Conjuring, not even Saw, but it is a fun movie. I do enjoy it. It is short, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and it does its job of providing solid scares. I like Dead Silence, and if you haven't seen it, it's a good doll scary movie. And talking about scary movies about dolls, number 6 is gonna be Child's Play. It's a classic. If you're a horror fan, a true horror fan, and you haven't seen it, you gotta give it a watch just out of respect of the horror genre. It's not my favorite Chucky movie. I actually prefer the second one. I think the second one is fantastic, but they don't have it on Tubi, so the first one is definitely something that if you haven't seen, you should watch it. And if you have seen it, I think you would agree with me. It's not the scariest movie, but it is a classic, and it is maybe like a good gateway horror to get people introduced into the horror genre. And speaking of goofy horror movies, number 5 is gonna be Killer Clowns from Outer Space. This is a ridiculous, over-the-top, goofy horror movie, but I love it, bro. This is iconic. It is such a visual treat. The clowns are so fun to look at. I just recently bought the game and playing the game right now. It's not super scary, but it is a horror icon or classic in that genre. You gotta give it a watch. It's funny, it's fun, it's goofy. I think it's an overall good time. But getting back on track to actually scary horror movies, number 4 is gonna be House LLC. This is another great found footage horror movie that has awesome scares, because a lot of people get overwhelmed or fed up with the classic jump scare where like everything goes silent, then something pops out and a loud noise comes out of nowhere. It just gets redundant after a while. So this movie has very unique scares that are very drawn out. They don't necessarily come out of nowhere with a loud noise. It's more suspenseful, like Clowns movie when you're not looking and then they're closer, stuff like that, where it really feels dreadful, and the clowns are super scary in this movie. The plot is really unique as well. It is definitely a must watch, especially if you like found footage. Number 3 is going to be Hellraiser. I'm not going to talk too much about it because it is a classic, but if you haven't seen it, I mean, just look at the poster, look at Pinhead, look at the Cenobites. They are terrifying, and it is an older movie, but it is so crazy. The effects are so intense that I still think it holds up. It is still a creepy ass movie about hell and torture and all this kind of weird stuff. You should definitely give it a watch if you're a horror fan and you haven't seen it. Number 2 is going to be House LLC to the Abaddon Hotel. This is actually a pretty good sequel. This franchise is pretty good overall. My favorite one's actually the 4th movie, which is not on TUBI, unfortunately. But out of the entire franchise, the only one that I could say is not that great is the 3rd movie, which is not even on TUBI. So this 2nd movie is a great follow-up to the 1st movie with some solid scares. I do recommend it. And number 1 is going to be Grave Encounters 2. This movie freaked me the out when I saw it with my friend back in California. Holy shit. It's not just scary, but there's depressing moments, or not depressing, like Triangle is depressing, not this movie. But a better word would be demoralizing. There's moments where your characters and your protagonists like almost get out, and then you're just like set all the way back to 0, and you're just like, oh my god, I don't even have the will to fight anymore. Just kill me already. So it's very demoralizing. There's this weird monster that you see on the cover of the movie is super creepy, bro. That shit is hauling ass towards you, bro. I was jumping out of my seat. It is definitely a fun movie. They do have the 1st one as well. I don't recommend the 1st one. It is long, it is boring, there are some good scares, but is not as satisfying as the 2nd movie, so I recommend Grave Encounters 2. Definitely go watch that movie. That is a horror roller coaster. Anyways, those are the 20 best horror movies in my opinion that are streaming on TUBI right now. Let me know down in the comments some other movies that are streaming on TUBI that are also very good horror movies. Like this video, subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.